Hi folks, I'm Jack Kennedy and welcome to episode 2 of a new initiative from the Irish Farmers Journal called Farm Tech Talk. At the outset, I'd like to acknowledge the support of FBD, Ornua and MSD to make this outside broadcast happen. Once again this week, I'd like to welcome our suckler and beef editor Adam Woods, our sheep and schemes editor Darren Carty and our dairy editor Aidan Brennan. Again, our intention with this venture is to help you share information with farmers in these days when there's not as many meetings, when you're not meeting as many as your colleagues, when there's no discussion groups, when there's no meetings going on around the country. A lot of what we'll discuss is to try and get behind some of the stories in the Farmers Journal and I suppose to get some real practical advice in terms of what's happening around the country at this time of the year. Aidan, I might look to you first in terms of, I see you were in the sunny southeast, you were down with the Breens in Wexford. What's happening down there?
I was, yeah, Jack. I mean, a really busy farm at this time of year in particular. One thing that Joe said to me was that March was way busier than February, which is something I hear a lot about. I hear a lot of dairy farmers saying the same thing. What's happening down there at the moment, I suppose, is the herd is in expansion mode. So they're going from 180 to 220 cows. And there's new land that are coming on stream to facilitate that. So they're busy preparing that land now for turning it into a really high-performing grazing platform like the rest of their land there as it was. But yeah, I mean, I suppose grass is kind of the key thing. Joe is excellent at managing grass. He's done a number of measurements so far this year, and he's grown like 0.9 of a ton to date. But it's really on the edge at the moment in terms of have you enough grass to finish the first round, and when are you going to start the second rotation. So it's on a knife edge. But I think that's the best way to be because the last thing you want at the moment is to have too much grass. Otherwise, your quality will deteriorate heading into the second rotation. So that's kind of the bones of where the farm was at the moment. Busy place. Like, you know, Joe barely had time to talk to me, which suited, I suppose, from the point of view of social distancing.
And tell me, so it was mostly grass, Aidan. Was there any feed going in?
So he's feeding 5 kilos of nuts and I think there's 9 or 10 kilograms of grass then on top of that. So he's going to stay on the level of concentrate for the next couple of days at least. He's monitoring growth rates. Look, I mean, he was at the stage where he was considering having to feed silage. Now, that was last Monday. Things have probably changed again since then because the last few days have been good with high temperatures, and that's going to drive on growth. A lot of his covers are in around the 600 to 700 kilogram mark. So I would say they've most of their hard work done, and from now on, like, you know, the leaf area is going to capture a lot more sunlight, and I'd say growth is going to drive on in there because, you know, really sunny days, like the plenty fertilizer, good soil fertility. If it was a little bit softer, you'd say you'd be growing 50 or 60 a day in the next week or so. But it just depends on what the nighttime temperatures are going to be for the next couple of days.
Okay, it's the end of March, Aidan, so we're kind of within 20 days, maybe a month from the start of breeding on a lot of dairy farms. I suppose there's a lot of prep being done on farms, we'll say, in terms of preparing cows for breeding. Kind of, I suppose, give us a feel for what's happening out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're as you say, we're about a month away, or 6 weeks in some cases. For me, it's all about condition score. This time of year, it's all about condition score because cows have just come through a difficult period where they've lost condition after calving. They've been in negative energy balance for the last couple of weeks. I think you need to really monitor that at the moment and take action to the thin cows. So I'd suggest you run cows through a crush, all cows through a crush, and go through the condition score of them. Look, generally we use a scale of 1 to 5, but the range at the moment is going to be between 2.5 and probably 3.25. You know, an odd freshly calved cow could be up to 3.5. But really, it's the ones that are less than 2.75 you'd be worried about. They need to go on once-a-day milking straight away in order to protect what condition that they have and allow them to regain new condition, more condition score. And generally, I'd leave them on that until they start breeding. So if they come bulling, whenever they come bulling, whenever you serve them, then I'd put them back on the twice-a-day milking. But you're really like, okay, you're losing a little bit of milk, but you're capturing a lot more milk next spring because those cows, number one, they'll still be in the system, and number two, they should calve a little bit earlier than they would have if they're only milked twice a day and let the condition score drip off them.
A lot of farmers, Aidan, would be inclined to feed a few extra kilos to those thin cows. Like, right or wrong thing to do?
Well, I think it's the wrong thing to do because all you're doing is substituting really high quality grass with concentrate that's 4 or 5 times the cost of it. So we know that spring grass is an excellent feed. Give them enough of it, and they don't need any concentrate. What you're going to do putting in concentrate is, in some cases, a lot of these cows will only milk more, and it'll exacerbate the problem rather than solving it.
Okay, quick one. I mean, again, milk recording, somatic cell count. Some herds having issues. End of March again. Have most that are milk recording done their first recording at this stage? I suppose, or kind of what's the kind of plan on that one?
Well, ordinarily you would have said that yes, they would have, but coronavirus this year has upset the whole thing with in regards to milk recording, because manual milk recording is now stopped, and last year 60% of the herds were recorded manually. So a lot more farmers now are looking into DIY recording as a way of getting over that. Look, I think the whole thing is a little bit delayed. I'd say there's a lot less recording done this year compared to last year, so year to date. But the DIY recording, look, it's a little bit of a hassle compared to manual recording, because you have to do it yourself. The technology takes a little bit to get used to. But a bit of patience and a bit of time involved in it, you will get there. It does work. And look, I mean, the benefits of recording are great in terms of the information you're getting on yields per cow, and fat and protein percent, and particularly cell count. So we did see a bit of an increase in cell count in many herds earlier this year, because cows were housed for so long. So doing your milk recording now will really help to identify your high cell count cows and your problem cows.
Adam, maybe to move to you. I mean, Aidan touched off it there. It's super weather this week. The sun is shining. It's relatively dry. I'm sure there's a lot of cattle farmers, suckler farmers thinking about turning out cattle to grass. I mean, where do you stand now on grazing silage fields at this stage?
Yeah, I guess Jack turnout was a little delayed this year, especially in the northwest, and that has provided challenges, I suppose, as to whether we go to silage ground or not. But it's still, we talk about silage quality when it comes to October, when it's too late. We need to talk about silage quality now. So definitely grazing off silage ground, very, very important in terms of making quality silage. And we've really seen it this spring in terms of the challenge, especially with early calving cows on a lot of suckler farms. We hadn't good quality silage there to feed those early calving cows because delayed turnout happened. And I suppose a lot of people learned a lesson because of that. So this year, I suppose there's a big effort there maybe to make better quality silage. If we look at the difference between 72 DMD and 62 DMD, there's about 300 kilos of a difference there to feeding a bull weanling for the winter. That's, we'll say, across 20 cows or 20 bull weanlings, that's up at €1,500. And, €1,500 won't be easy to come by maybe next winter. So it's one way that we can really reduce our costs for next winter.
Okay, to move on to the dairy calf to beef side of things. Again, it's a kind of a very busy time at this time of the year for rear and dairy calves. Were you down on the Try farm this week? And I suppose what did you pick up down there?
Yeah, I was down there. We've 121 calves in on that farm so far. All going very well. We'd one case of mortality this week. A calf for the last 7 days hadn't really throve, was sick, down on himself or whatever, and we got the vet out to him twice. And unfortunately he passed away, and we actually got a post-mortem done. Very interesting results. Tom Julian came back with them, and in terms of, it was peritonitis that killed the calf, and it was, we'll say, due to a twisted bowel. But Tom reckons it's going back to maybe we'll say transferring over to a starch-based diet. That maybe it sort of hammers home the importance that these young calves get access to crunch and access to a palatable meal from a very, very early age, because the thinking is that when he came to the Try demonstration farm and went on to crunch, that he wasn't fit to transition across on that diet very, very quickly. But other than that, everything going well. Yearlings are out. Steers weighed very well, going out 350 kilos. Heifers around 335. And they're off grazing some heavy covers down there. A lot of grass down there at the moment. The cover is up on 1,000 kilos. So it'll be a challenge again to get silage ground grazed on that farm to get it closed up. It might be a little bit later this year in terms of closing it up.
At the other end of the country, I see you were up near Malin up as far as you can go, I suppose, up in Donegal, in terms of way out west. That farmer you profiled there, he mixed system, 15 or 20 cows and 150 odd ewes lambing. Can he make it work up there, or what's the story?
Yeah, very, very typical, Jack. And I suppose that's what way out west is supposed to be in terms of typical farm size and typical farm. And you'll see their shots in terms of a beautiful part of the country, but literally farming on the edge up there as regards the very edge of the country. James has went down the route, which a lot of these farms do, in terms of where land type is challenging and where farms are small, to go high quality. And we see a lot of people heading for this, we'll say, Carrick Fair, maybe next November with their weanlings. You see that the quality of the weanlings are really top notch. And where land is limited, maybe reduce the numbers, go really, really high quality. And some guys, it really pays them off really, really well to go down that route. But it's a really positive story. It was a real family effort up there, and a positive story in a week where we hadn't a lot of positive stories this week.
You touched off it there, Adam. It's been a difficult week in the beef trade and the suckler trade, I suppose. We saw the official closure of marts around the country, and we saw pressure coming on the factory beef trade. Like, can you just kind of maybe summarise the week that was and what you see happening over the next couple of days?
Yeah, I guess marts had hoped to continue to trade. A lot of them had put in a huge effort in terms of social distancing around that mark, but we got the news on Tuesday night that it was complete lockdown, and that's going to provide challenges over the next few weeks for farmers, especially as regards cash flow, that farmers sell cattle to meet payments. So it's going to provide challenges there. Farm to farm movement still okay to complete that, but there are challenges with that as regards payment, as regards trust, and it's a different ball game in terms of paperwork. I know Darren's going to go into that. As regards beef factories, again, we're seeing a lot of uncertainty there. We're seeing some beef factories slow to quote. Stricter restrictions there around carcass weight. I know some of the factories are imposing 10 cent after 420 kilos of a cut, and after 450 you're going into 20 cent. And quotes from Monday morning are going to be back to the tune maybe of 5 or 10 cent. I know in Tullamore we were quoted 355 for young bulls for Monday morning. So I suppose in terms of demand, the demand I suppose isn't there, and that's going to provide challenges. Numbers are tight, speaking to agents on the ground. In general, out on the country, in terms of in-farm or sheds, numbers of finished cattle are quite tight. And if, we'll say, this crisis hadn't come, we would have been looking, I'd say, at an increased beef price over the next few weeks. But certainly it's moving by the day at the moment. And I suppose we don't know yet as regards what the real quotes are going to be for Monday morning, but they're likely to be back.
I mean, you were showing some clips there of old footage from the marts. I mean, it's a big change, the fact that like there's no marts, Adam. Like, I mean, do you feel there's going to be a lot more? Obviously the route now is farm to farm, unless there's changes over the next couple of days.
Ironically, Jack, those last few sales were really, really good sales. There was a really, really good calf sale in Kilkenny last week, and that heifer sale in Elphin that you've just seen, there was really, really good prices at that as well. But yeah, now we're moving to farm movements. I think maybe there's discussions going on there with the department on marts to see, is there some, we'll say, workable solution to it in terms of weighing and paying, where we have minimum staff involved in the mart, but we've yet to see any movement on that. So yeah, it's farm to farm. It's not a complete disaster in terms of farm to farm movements can still take place. Farmers can still sell stock, but as I said, you need to be very careful around money there. You need to be very careful around who you trust. And I'd say for any farmer that has stock to sell, contact their mart, because they are pairing up people at the moment as regards they have buyers looking for stock, and they can facilitate the movement of that stock.
Okay, Darren, we might shoot to you on the sheep side of things, and we'll move into maybe a little bit on the BPS and kind of farm to farm movements again. But if we start off maybe in terms of Tullamore Farm, lambing, big week on the farm, I suppose, in terms of a lot of ewes, lambing, etc. Maybe, and obviously the weather has been very good, like we'll say. So I mean, give us maybe a brief update in terms of what's happening down on Tullamore Farm there this week on the sheep side of things.
Yeah, so I suppose you hit the nail on the head, Jack. Is lambing comes so much easier when weather is good, and like Sean is in the peak of lambing from last night up to last night. He had about 100 ewes lambed. I was talking to him there this morning. There was another 10 ewes lamb between last night and this morning. He's about another 130 to go. So this week coming should see a lot of them out. We'll start with yearling hoggets at the weekend, and really, I suppose, as you say, the weather it's allowing them to say leave a ewe and a lamb, or ewe and 2 lambs in the pen for 24 hours. He has another pen set up, maybe group pen, that he can leave them there if there's a ewe that's maybe had triplets and we take off 1 lamb, there's still 2 light lambs, he can leave them there for another 24 hours. But in general, he's getting them out to grass within 24 hours to 48 hours, and that's really taking the pressure off in space. Performance is going well. Low levels of mortality to report. He had a few at the beginning. Look, there was a few cases of uterine prolapse in 2 or 3 ewes, and look at them issues come at the beginning. But since that, very low levels of mortality. We're doing a lot of recording down there at the moment, so he's some student to help in as well, and they're taking, say, records on matching the lamb up to the ewe, because we're single sire mating, and also taking birth weights, taking a measure of the ewe, say motherability, milk yield, and that will really stand to us for later on in the year when we want to maybe complete the picture of how breeding is going and what way animals are performing.
Darren, another piece, and we touched off it there with Adam, is the farm to farm movements piece. And again, you can do kind of that piece online if you want to. Isn't that fair to say?
Definitely, and that's the quickest, I suppose, maybe element, Jack, that we've had a few calls from people who would normally trade through marts, and maybe in particular calves coming up near the date that they need to be tested and they want to move them on, maybe farm to farm beforehand. So we have a few slides again, we can take people through it quickly here. we've seen this first screen. You log into your ag food. Instead of going for BPS, we can roll into the next screen now. We can see that you're going into animal identification and movements. Simply click on that, brings you through to several options. Click on apply to move animals from farm to farm or to a show. Look, we're not going to see shows for a while to come, but that's where you need to get into. Click on that, and the next one is the most important screen that you're going to have. So if you look there on your left-hand side, your herd number is going to be up there in your name. You put in the herd number into the box move to. Now, this is a change for people that might not have done farm-to-farm movements for years. In the past, you could put in an open-ended application for a certificate of compliance. You now need to have the herd number. If I put in your herd number there, Jack, it should bring up your name automatically. So I put in the herd number there, and that name we've created, Fred Lafferty, brings up that. The screen in the middle, then bovine animals move to holding. You just click that, and then all the tag numbers that are in your herd will come up in that carousel on the left there. And you simply highlight one, like as if it's highlighted there in blue. Go to the bottom where the arrows are. If you click on the first right arrow, it'll put the tag number over to the right hand side. So we've already clicked the tag there. We've clicked submit, and we can see that what it brings us onto the next screen now. So it brings us on there. Your compliance certificate has been generated. It shows, just gives a summary of it there. You can press email if you want to send it on to the person or the farmer who has bought of you, or you can open it to get your certificate number. We can click on there again, so we can, because I've just clicked open on that, and it shows what it brings up. So there, highlighted in red is that certificate number. That's really the most important bit of information there. So you take down that number, or else it'll be gone in the email. And then for the farmer who buys it, you give that to him. He can go in online, as we'll see on the next screen. And it's as simple as going back, notify farm movement, putting in the certificate number, click submit, and that brings it into his herd. Now, you'll probably say to me, Jack, there's not everyone is maybe up to date, or maybe with the online system. The old paper format is still there. That's showing a snapshot of it there. You can get it from your local DVO or go onto the Department of Agriculture website. There's three options. You can send it off by post, you can fax it, or you can email it. If it's done before 3 o'clock in the day, it'll be back to you the next day. And it's simply, it gives you the certificate of compliance. You put in the number and just send it back. So like, it's I suppose straightforward. I'm not going to go into, Adam has talked about the whole side of security of payments, what you need to be worried about. That's just literally given a snapshot for people who've been asking us about it.
I know it's very, very timely, I suppose, and very practical at this just, you know, specifically when the marts have been closed, as you say, just this week. Again, Darren, I suppose, maybe just give us a wraparound in terms of the factories and the sheep trade, I suppose, this week, in terms of some of the changes that are happening.
Yeah, so it's been a very hard week for sheep farmers, Jack. We've seen this. Prices have dropped anywhere from the tune, depending on where you're selling, from 40 to 60 cents for hoggets. Spring lamb is also taking a fair dent as well. And a lot of that is coming from the back of a very difficult 24 hours of trading last Monday, where the price in the UK fell by 80 pence a kilo. There was a lot of big orders cancelled from France, Belgium, Germany, because of, I suppose, maybe greater restrictions on movement of people. And when that was brought in, then retailers reduced or else cancelled orders altogether. From what I'm hearing, like, our trends during the week is we'd no quotes for today. Factories, what they have been paying for hoggets is anywhere between $5.40 and $5.60 for Friday's kill. There's no indications as of yet whether that will continue into Monday. Signs are that it's not being talked about another pull at the moment, and where spring lambs are at is generally around the €6 mark. Now, I know there is some factories that don't have a job for spring lamb, quoting lower, and that is something I suppose that farmers just need to price around, see where is the best outlet, and see what they can do. You mentioned about the marts being closed, and look, at a lot of spring lamb producers would have targeted the mart sale in the next 2 or 3 weeks for the Easter trade, and my advice to them is, look at this. We don't know yet what's going to come. There may be something on the mart side, like what Adam talked about, that will help in the in say Lincoln butchers, wholesalers, with farmers. But in the meantime, if that isn't to materialise, farmers need to be looking and drafting their sheep timely, because while they could have sold maybe a heavier spring lamb, they might now be out of spec for the factory trade, and there's no point feeding them into heavier weights if the market is for a different or a lighter carcass.
Okay. Thanks, folks, for the update, I suppose, in terms of what's happening in the fields and the trade. A couple of quick fire questions that came in, I suppose, in the last couple of days. Aidan, one for you. I see that the price of soybean has skyrocketed. Any idea what's happening there?
Yeah, Jack, it's after increasing by about €100 a ton. There's three issues. Number one, the amount of soybean meal being exported from Argentina is way back. Shipping costs have gone up, and there's also currency fluctuations at play. So the demand for soy hulls has increased. And so too other byproducts such as palm kernel and soy hulls, like they're hard to get at this stage. I suppose from an Irish farmer's perspective, it's probably happening at a reasonably good time of the year, because most of our livestock are now going to grass, so the dependence on imported feed will be less. But for pig and poultry sector, it's a much bigger issue.
Yeah, so it'll hit harder on those that have, as you say, stock inside, and other countries that are producing a lot of indoor milk, like and other meat proteins, like Darren, we've touched off a good bit of it, but farm to farm movements, is there a top tip in terms of farm to farm movements?
Yeah, I think Adam, I think Jack, the couple of top tips is, number one, I'd say, is to check if you're a farmer and you're buying. Check that the tag number coincides with the blue card and that the details on that are correct. So there could, just in case there might be a heifer registered as a bull, or that there might be some little query, because it's easier to get that done on the host farm, and also the security of payment. That if you're in any doubt, well, then maybe don't move animals until payment is in your bank account, and that's just something to be aware of.
Okay. Adam, a question came in there in terms of cattle not fit but not far off. Sell now or wait is the question.
Look, Jack, it never pays to kill cattle that aren't finished, because our grid system, you're going to lose out, maybe lose the quality assurance payment on them. What I would say is contact the factory, have a chat with the procurement, manager, see where those, how many weeks away your cattle are likely to be killed, and keep in constant contact with them, because if they know that the cattle are coming, maybe they've better foresight on it, and you can I suppose communicate with them. Killing underfinished cattle will not pay anybody.
Okay, last one for you, Aidan. Calf prices. What's going to happen now that the markets are closed?
Yeah, sure. With the market gone, there's a bit of transparency has left the market, but all the indications suggest that demand is still strong. So we have shippers buying strongly, and other farmer buyers also buying strongly. So look, I'd say that the trade will probably hold up fairly well. But at this stage, a lot of the calves have been sold or have moved on. But look, I think it'll be farm to farm sales, but prices are holding fairly okay by all accounts.
Okay, lads, thanks for your input again today. I mean, it's good to get a kind of a practical, up-to-date response, and I suppose just in terms of what's happening around the country in these exceptional times that we're farming in at the moment. If anyone is interested in hearing more on the trade and policy and the politics and that kind of thing, I mean, make sure you tune in to, I had a chat with Justin McCarthy, our editor, Phelim O'Neill, our market specialist, and Katrina Morrissey, our news editor. So make sure you tune into that programme as well, because you'll again hear more up-to-date stories in terms of what's happening around the country. I'm Jack Kennedy signing off for this week. Thanks to Adam, Darren and Aidan for taking time out of their busy schedules once again, and also to those that are supporting us in this outside broadcast, FBD, Ornua and MSD. Without them, we couldn't make it happen. So prevention is better than cure. Stay away from each other and safe farming.